Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're from. Friends near and far, from Kinshasa to California, it is wonderful to have you in this virtual space, this virtual gathering. My name is Mopati Morake. I'm a proud faculty member here at African Leadership Academy, calling you live from Johannesburg. And it is wonderful to be gathered to kind of with our friends, with our partners, with our supporters this evening to hear what has been happening at the Academy that we all treasure and value deeply. This evening, we're going to have a chance to hear from our new Chief Executive Officer, Bilha Ndirango, as well as members of our executive team, who will share with you exciting updates, insights, lessons learned over the last year or so. So thank you for joining us, whether it's early in the morning or later in the evening. Your presence is appreciated, your support is appreciated. Perhaps let me just establish one or two ground rules before we get going. This webinar is being recorded. Secondly, there will be an opportunity to ask questions of our panelists, of our executive team later. So if you do have a question, please use the Q&A function on Zoom. And our production team will capture the questions and we'll have a chance to ask them at the end of the session. You do not need to worry about, as this is a webinar format, you do not need to worry about muting yourself or unmuting yourself, but please do engage with the Q&A function. So hopefully that is clear. I want to welcome all of you once again. Karibuni, marhaba. And now I would like to invite our CEO, Bilha, to take the virtual stage to formally welcome all of you. Bilha.
Thank you. Thank you, Mopati. So welcome to all the stakeholders who joined us this day. I'm really glad that you're here and grateful that you're setting aside the time to meet us and to hear updates from our campus. I've been at ALA for the last 5 months as the Chief Executive Officer, and I'm humbled to be sitting here today to address you. Over the past few months, through my interactions with the ALA community, students, faculty, alumni, and global stakeholders, I've been able to learn so much about the amazing work that has taken place at ALA over the past 15 years. The foundations of ALA are really strong, and one of the things that I believe evidences that is the fact that I've watched how gracefully ALA has quickly responded to the COVID-19 pandemic over the past 18 months. And it's been amazing to watch how the institution has coped with that and learning has continued. But having said that, there's still a lot of innovative work ahead of us, and I'm excited to see how we can strengthen our people, our programs, and our impact to achieve the same. Despite the global challenges that COVID-19 brought us, ALA is still thriving and growing. For example, since the COVID pandemic was declared in March 2020, we have graduated over 200 students who've transitioned to universities around the world, practical gap years where they're building skills and networks, and entrepreneurship. Our Anzisha Prize program celebrated 10 years of supporting very young entrepreneurs across the continent. And in the past year, they redesigned their fellowship, which you'll hear in just a few minutes from my colleague and VP of Growth and Entrepreneurship, Josh Adler. The networks team led by Maya Mashikiza has continued to grow, supporting ALA alumni and MasterCard Foundation scholars to accelerate their career trajectory through professional development coaching. We have sector-specific programming and job internship placements for the students. The sectors team flourished over the past year, and ALA currently has 6 thriving sectors that are connecting alumni and stakeholders. You'll hear an update from Maya on the progress from the networks team on this call too. So I want to highlight one thing that I'm excited to share with you this evening in particular on ALA's investment in the creative arts. Many ALA students and alumni are exceptional artists, from New Raza Malagasy singer, songwriter, and performing artist, to filmmaker Ukairo, to Maxwell Simba, who shines on the stage as an actor, and so on. ALA, though, has not historically had the capacity to fully nurture, support, and empower artistic students and alumni. In 2020, we embarked on a series of investments to ignite the full power of arts and education on our campus and beyond. In order to enable creative discovery and learning on campus, ALA is renovating existing spaces to create what we're calling the Creative Commons, a collaborative space that will allow students to study and practice different art forms. We are midway through the renovation of our auditorium, which is being expanded and upgraded, ensuring that we can deliver high quality productions and accommodate our full campus community in a space with outstanding visual technology. I'm happy to report that we anticipate the newly renovated auditorium will be finalized in February 2022. The next step after that in the Creative Commons will then be refurbishing existing container classrooms on our campus, transforming them into 5 unique, appropriately designed and equipped studios for on-site studies and practice of a range of art forms. This will include a dance studio, digital editing and recording studio, visual art studio, choir studio, and a music studio. It's our hope that this investment and the new spaces will ensure that our students are able to unlock their creative potential. I, for one, cannot wait to see the creative collaboration and expression that will grace the stage in the new auditorium and will come from the new studios that will make up the Creative Commons. All in all, I'm very privileged to be leading ALA and pushing the Academy forward in achieving its bold vision of developing the next generation of African leaders. And I'm looking forward to engaging with you, each of you, in the years ahead. When it's safe to do so, I look forward to welcoming some of you on the ALA campus and meeting you in person. Thank you once again for joining this call, and I hope you enjoy the updates from my colleagues over the next 1 hour. If you want to engage with us any further on anything you hear tonight, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or anyone on the ALA team. And if you have any questions, please do leave them in the Q&A box, and we'll strive to answer each question at the end of the session. Back to you, Mopati.
Asante sana, CEO Bilha. Thank you for that update. Any one of you who have visited ALA's campus will attest to the fact that there is such a vibrance, an energy, a creative energy that is palpable. And this Creative Commons is going to be a venue, the infrastructure to catalyze that, to really empower our students to create value and beauty. And so Tinacho, our Director of Development, has offered a link in the chat to learn more about the master plan and our plan for catalyzing the Creative Commons. So thank you so much for that update. We now turn to our very own Dean Hattem, who will give us an update about the 2-year program. Dean Hattem, are you ready?
Thank you, Mopati, and good evening, good afternoon, good morning to all of our friends. It's lovely to see all of the familiar names on the attendees list, and I'm grateful to all of you for taking the time to be with us tonight. I'm delighted to be able to share this brief update on the progress of the Diploma program over the past 12 months, a period I hope can be thought of as moving from survival to revival, to moving beyond having every decision being dictated by the pandemic. This all began in January of this year when we fully reopened campus for in-person instruction for the first time since we moved to remote instruction in March of 2020. Thanks to a modified timetable and calendar, we were able to progress the class of 2019, last year's graduates, to an on-time graduation. The vast majority of them proceeded directly to university. And it's been really rewarding to hear back the stories of success and flourishing that we heard from that cohort. Will always go down in memory, I think, as one of the most disrupted but most resilient cohorts in ALA history. Perhaps only bested by their year ones who only arrived in campus in January and will be graduating this June. But I'm grateful to say that they are also on track, even if they are a little bit frazzled by the pace by which we've had to move. We also enrolled a full class of first-year students from more than 30 different African countries who joined us this September. I'm grateful to the team that kept admissions going and enabled smooth immigration processes for all of them. They are on a calendar that is much more like the calendar that previous ALA cohorts have had, although we've tried to translate some of the lessons we learned in how we manage and deploy and structure our time in the timetable, such as, for instance, the use of asynchronous lessons. We've deployed some of those lessons in the planning that we have for them. And they, although the end of their term has been a little bit disrupted by the emergence of Omicron here in South Africa or around the world, but the detection of it here in South Africa, they have had a largely standard first term experience, which it's been a big reward, I think, for all of us to feel that bit of return to normal. Remarkably, during the same timeline, our colleagues at SEGL, our partners at the School for Ethics and Global Leadership, were able to bring 2 full cohorts to campus to continue building this partnership program. They had a full cohort in the Northern Hemisphere spring, and their second cohort just left yesterday, in fact, after a full 10 weeks here on campus. In the classroom, in the residence, and throughout campus, young leaders are forging cross-cultural relationships of deep academic, intellectual, and personal value. And I'm very excited to see that program will continue to develop and flourish. In the faculty space, faculty this year have been engaged in a new reflective pedagogical practice organized around something called the Professional Development Portfolio. At the start of the year, each faculty member identified a specific impact on student practice that they wanted to work towards, and then began to collect a variety of evidence, whether from observation or from planning or from student work, that they would be able to reflect on a monthly basis to see whether or not their changes in practice are resulting in the change in student learning that they hope for. This is really the fruition of several years of sharpening our understanding of the ALA way of working in the classroom. And I hope, and as we've started to see already in faculty shareback sessions, that this practice is bringing coherence and clarity to what is very complicated, but also very rewarding work of continuous improvement in the classroom. In the same time, we also renewed our admission process this year, restructuring some of our instruments, not radically, but a little bit, and also attaching some more clearly defined criteria. So applicants who are being reviewed as we speak for the class of 2022 are being assessed in similar ways, but with a little bit more specificity about what we mean when we say intellectual readiness, and what we look for when I try to identify courage. And excitingly, we've been very concrete about seeking interdependence as a specific trait for which our young leaders are assessed. We look forward to welcoming ALA's 15th class to campus next year. Applications are still open until December 31st. So if you are connected to a young leader or know others who might be connected to a young leader, please spread the word widely. We would love your help to build that applicant pool. In conclusion, I think what I'll say is that, as with every school, organization, or learning community around the globe, the pandemic continues to take a heavy toll on focus, on energy, on well-being. And in the midst of all that, I'm deeply, deeply grateful for the resilience and resolve of students, and particularly of colleagues who have given a great deal to ensure that the academy continues to run, that learning continues to happen, that relationships are forged, and that the community intentionally continues to flourish. We're all looking forward to a good rest over this festive season, and I'm confident that we'll return rejuvenated and with renewed vigor in the new year. Thank you.
Shukran, Dean Hatem. Thank you for that update. That phrase, moving from survival to revival, certainly stands out. I think one thing that's been remarkable is the intentionality that you've spoken of, the improved quality of questions we're asking as a diploma program, and the mantra of how do we get better? How do we get better at getting better? And so let's dig a little bit deeper into the lived experience here in Honeydew, South Africa. by hearing from two of our outgoing or our former student government chairs. We have Malik and Fade, who served very honorably on student government in a testing time, and they're going to give us their insights, their reflections from their tenure, leading the student body, leading the community in this era. So Fade and Malik, can I invite you to the virtual stage?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moraki, for that introduction. My name is Fade Balogun, and I am from the Republic of Nigeria, and I served as the chairlady of the student government. Malik?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Malachi Malik Mashikho from the Republic of South Africa. We are here to share updates from the ALA campus. So when I ran for chairman, my campaign phrase was "We rise regardless," right? And this was because I wanted to change the narrative of the way students went through challenges that arise on campus. And indeed, we have risen. Examples include the Entrepreneurial Leadership Festival that we had, where students got into teams to find solutions to Africa's most challenging problems. A team called Fairy won. They invented a biodigester which turns waste into electricity. Another innovation students use is called DOT. It stands for Do Odd Things, similar to Do Hard Things. A fintech enterprise on campus which allows students to buy off-campus goods without using their bank cards. The student government has also made efforts to improve the quality of student life for the next generation of African leaders. From the Basel policy that we initiated, which subsidizes essentials for those who struggle to afford, as well as the assessment tracker policy, which allows students to prepare for the rigor of ALA. Thank you. And now you'll hear from our obstacles from the chair lady. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Malik, so much for that. I am going to be going over some of the obstacles that we faced as a community during our time in student government and as a year group. So the very first obstacle was learning online. We first had a virtual term, and that was very new for a lot of people. This was a lot of people's first time starting learning online, and we faced a lot of challenges there. However, despite those challenges, we were able to persevere, and then we started full physical instruction in January, and that was generally great, and a lot of people had a great time. The next major obstacle that was faced was getting onto campus. There were a lot of issues with visas and getting certain documents to be able to come to South Africa, especially during the pandemic. Unfortunately, students from Cameroon were still not able to attend, and we're hoping that in the coming years this can be solved. The next thing was that we were forced to create a new culture. So unlike other year groups that kind of had different community building events, physical events that they could connect, our year group did not have those opportunities. But however, our year head, Mr. J. Galloway, was able to foster these kind of new bonds and culture through games, that we were able to play together in team and community building events. And then lastly, COVID-19. It was a big disruption to a lot of things on campus, and having us adjust to that was kind of difficult. In that regard, Malik and I worked closely with the COVID Compliance Committee to enforce COVID protocols on campus, and work closely with the administration to make sure we were able to do these things. So in the similar ALA fashion, despite the many obstacles that we faced, we did largely overcome them, and the year group is ready to continue to move forward and hopefully graduate by chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We rise regardless.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Malik and Fade. We are very proud of your service and your leadership and how you, as you said, Malik, rose above, right? Leadership is developed through practice, and what better practice than to lead through times of uncertainty, through times of rapid change, through seasons of tumult, and you did so quite honorably. Thank you. I would now like to welcome to the stage Maya Machikiza, who will talk to us about what it means to unleash the network, one of our strategic priorities in our strategic plan. Maya will give us an exciting update about what has been happening in the world of the networks.
Thanks, Mopati. Good evening, community and friends of ALA. It's really good to be here. 2 years ago, when I joined ALA, I knew I had a great task in front of me to help shape the Unleash the Network strategic priority and build a network that meaningfully engages our alumni, our stakeholders, our partners, and friends of ALA. And the task ahead was phenomenal, but we were not starting from scratch. At the time, we had a growing career acceleration program for young leaders, and we started seeing the value of convening members of our network into focused communities of interest, such as we did with AL for Health and AL for Education at the time. Now, 2 years down the line, I feel very proud of the progress that we made. We have countless examples of young leaders who, by being a part of the network, have been able to gain meaningful employment on the continent, obtain funding for their entrepreneurial ventures, connect with like-minded peers, and be motivated to pursue their dreams in sectors like agriculture, health, governance, the arts, infrastructure, and education. COVID hit us hard, however. For a team focused on engaging a community of 5,000 plus network members, the challenge was very great. We had to convert our mode of engaging from in-person to virtual and keep the community connected to the network. And most importantly, connected to each other. So the team had to come up with some great initiatives or some initiatives to provide multiple options for our community to engage with us and find avenues for the community to engage with each other and grow their ventures. Fortunately, we are backed by a strong base of donors and are proud to have secured additional funding this year from more recent partners like Small Foundation, Efusi Foundation, Kupanda Capital, and Standard Bank. And thanks to the support of such valuable partners, the team has grown tremendously, enabling us to bring some more focus to the work that we do. As an education-focused institution, we knew we were stretching our reach by daring to believe that we could establish engagement platforms on topics that fall outside of education. We now have a fully fledged team offering a diverse set of skills and experiences that fit right within what our network needs. For example, the AL for Agribusiness Network Community Lead is herself a farming entrepreneur with a passion for youth success in the sector. And this type of capability sets apart the network, because it is then able to provide a kind of coaching and connections that are meaningful to our alumni. And the more we are able to reflect and role model what leadership means in these spaces, the stronger the network will be. Going forward, we see the network accessing a wider audience on the continent and finding every opportunity to give young people a voice on issues that shift the narrative for the African continent. And we hope that you will be a part of it, either by becoming an employer partner or by finding out what our young people are up to and see how you can assist. Or finally, by joining youth-driven initiatives like our Africa Climate Change Initiative, which you will hear more about in the coming months. And I look forward to connecting with you in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that update, Maya. And I want to just echo something you just said at the end, that we encourage, we invite our friends and supporters to join a network community, this exciting community of practice that is thinking about how to bring about positive impact in the different spaces and sectors that they're involved in. So thank you for that. We would now like to hear from some of our graduates, right? All of us on this call believe in the transformative potential of the young people that we invest in and we support. And so I'd like to invite to the call Beauclair Mbanya. Beauclair, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, okay?
I'm good. Good to see you again. It's good to see you on this call. Can you tell us, where are you calling from? Introduce yourself to the group and tell us where you're calling from.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Beauclair Mbanya Jr. I'm from Cameroon. I'm calling from Oxford, United Kingdom. Just brief introduction. Studying at University of Oxford. I'm doing my MSc in Environmental Change and Management. And my focus here is more about understanding environmental change and how to respond to that. So looking at things like climate change and energy transition, just on an overall base.
Great. And I mean, it's it's worth congratulating you belatedly on your Rhodes Scholarship. But we all know that the wonderful education you're receiving at Oxford is a means to an end, right? There's a problem that you want to solve, there's impact that you want to have. So can you talk a little bit more about where you are taking these studies, what kind of work you envision doing on the climate front, what kind of work perhaps you've done with regards to sustainability and energy on the continent?
I think in terms of the research work I plan to do here at Oxford and how that translates to the continent, is more of how does climate change affect legacy electricity generating systems, so like hydroelectric dams, and how can we alter energy capacity planning on the African continent to actually counteract the effects of climate change and at the same time meet the demands on the African continent. So on how those translate is more of, I think in the long term, my focus is really how to support government institutions and private corporations on how to actually achieve their net zero targets, and at the same time, how to help them with energy transition. Because, with the whole push for net zero climate change, it's very important that it's more of like a multi-actor kind of responsibility, and you need both the right policies, but at the same time, you need the right investments into the space.
All right, so you see yourself kind of, helping governments get to net zero, which is pressing, ever pressing. But one of the things that we believe in here is sort of is leadership by practice, right? You've been thinking about these issues for some time, and you've been sort of honing your questions for some time. So can you tell us a little bit about the work that you did with energy in Nigeria, with Care for Seven, and how that sort of brought you here?
So I did work in Care for Seven, and the focus there was how do you empower African pre-college students to be energy innovators. And it's because I realized that there was kind of a loophole in the education system where people knew a lot of theory, but they couldn't really apply it. So what happened is that we organized like summer camps, and we worked with like 60 pre-college students, and we taught them on how to build handheld solar devices, so like solar chargers, solar lamps, and also multi-purpose solar devices. And one thing we realized that we work with actually kids from 13 to actually 18. Now, one thing we realized is that there's a lot of enthusiasm among the age bracket we're working with, irrespective of the fact of their different knowledge about the concept. But we realized that for it to be sustainable, it's very important to have like a design space, where people in the education sector and people in the private or energy sector can collaborate in terms of knowledge sharing, and also in terms of collaboration at different levels. So we plan to translate that from moving from like a summer camp to actually having like a design space where we can actually have that more on like monthly or once every 2 months, just have it more of like continuously, so we can have continuous impact and we can do better monitoring evaluation about the impact we are having.
I'm excited about the work that you've been doing and the work that you continue to do, Beauclair, to both in terms of creating, empowering young people to develop innovative energy solutions, and the work that you will do to help governments get to net zero. Right, this is the challenge of our generation. So thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for that update. We wish you well. Keep flying the flag high.
Thank you.
It's always just inspiring to remember why we do what we do, right? To help facilitate pathways like this. And I'm going to segue now to hearing about how we're supporting other very young people across the continent to do important work, to do meaningful work. My colleague Joshua Adler is going to speak to us about the ecosystem that is burgeoning ecosystem that is in the world of Anzisha. Joshua.
Thanks, Mopati. And as Hatton said earlier, it's really nice to see so many, I guess, friendly names on the call, and I'm delighted to be able to speak to you. So as Bill mentioned, we've had a decade of, I think, some remarkable success and impact around our very young entrepreneurship work. We even wrote a book about it, and maybe a colleague can pop it in the chat, but it was called Africa's Hidden Job Creators. And we unpacked 10 lessons or 11 lessons from those 10 years of work. And the work continues. We just selected our most recent cohort, 26 very young entrepreneurs from across Africa, our largest cohort ever. And our hope is to actually double the size of that in the coming months and years. And you can actually watch the way we found them this year through our first ever little mini documentary reality series called The Quest, which is coming to you live on YouTube, I guess. So, and hopefully the link for that will come too. But in the last little sort of year and a half, we've been focusing on really one question. It's how do we get more young people of high potential, leadership potential, people like the students that come to ALA, to transition directly from education, secondary school or undergraduate education and university, to entrepreneurship without a job in between. I'll just say it again to let it sink in. How do we get more young people with leadership potential to transition directly from high school and university directly into entrepreneurship without a job in between? Because there aren't enough jobs to go around, right? We've done a lot of thinking about how to really respond to that question over the next 10 years, and we've got support to kind of solve that. And I'm excited to say that we're going for it with gusto. There are a number of changes coming, but I thought I'd just focus on telling you about one, which is a material change to the fellowship itself. And to help illustrate it, I thought we'd just do a little imagining exercise. You don't have to close your eyes, but maybe just focus on the things I'm going to say. Think about you're a young African entrepreneur. It's a couple of years ago, about 2015, 2016, and you've applied to the Anzisha Prize. You have a growing business, and you get this call to say you're an Anzisha finalist. And this is a life-changing opportunity for you. You're over the moon. You're super, super excited about everything that's about to happen. You get on an airplane, you arrive at African Leadership Academy, you discover things about your identity, a sense of Pan-Africanism, you learn skills, connections, networks. You have this support to pitch to the Anzisha judges. And it's all about recognizing what you've done before you got there. And you're pretty confident you're going to win one of these really big prizes, $25,000 for the grand prize, 15 for second, 10 for third. And then there's the gala awards, and these grand prizes are given out, and you aren't one of the winners. And this kind of sinks in, and you know that you've been given this sort of quote unquote support for life from African Leadership Academy and Anzisha, but you go back home, there's this kind of support structure for coaching and other things, but slowly it starts to wane, you know, and over time, you know, you keep providing information like how many jobs you've created and your revenue and all these other things. But, you know, life continues and you've still got the hustle of running your business. We wanted to change that. Essentially what we've done is really framed everything around, this is not a prize for prior achievement for young entrepreneurs. It's a movement that recognizes all the actors that support transitions to early age entrepreneurship. So the fellowship is now turning, and these fellows that we just selected now are now going into a structured 3-year fellowship program. And we're positioning it as an alternative to university for active young entrepreneurs. It's essentially vocational training for active young entrepreneurs in Africa. And they get financial support, $6,000, conditional cash release over a couple of years. There's very structured engagement to help them with their businesses. And our hope is that they really successfully transition to sustainable income and the other parts of the ecosystem. So it is no longer a for life support system. We're eager to prove that this bet is the right bet to make. I look forward to sort of any questions on that or how we're going to shape it. And there's a lot of news coming in that regard. So yeah, thank you for your attention. And I think there's a lot of other things we've done. The Young Entrepreneurs Fund, which supports alumni now with debt instrument, and a growing body of research work in this space. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Josh, and thank you to the Anzisha team. There's been really a lot of exciting research and insights and knowledge being produced about how we solve this essential question, right? How do we get the world's youngest continent to work and create viable entrepreneurial pathways for young people? And so if you have any questions from what you heard from Josh, please do type them into the Q&A function. Josh or anyone else, right? We've heard about our investments in the creative space and the creative arts. We've heard about the increased attention to learning and instruction in the 2-year program. We've heard about the burgeoning sector work. So if you have a question for one of the participants or kind of a specific thing that you're wondering, please feel free to type it into the chat, as we'll hold a few minutes towards the end for the questions. So be generous on that front. We move from Anzisha to the financial picture and the sort of financial report from our Chief Financial Officer, Peter Kiningi. Peter, what say you?
Thank you, Mopati. Everyone on the call. Starts exploring the Academy's resources, and I'm delighted to report that yet again, we received an unqualified audit opinion for financials for the period ending 30 June 2021. Unqualified audit report simply means that you had a clean audit or your books passed the master. We cautiously navigated the year due to various restrictions that were as a result of the COVID pandemic. With all the uncertainties that persisted throughout the year, the board decided to review and refocus our budgets on a quarterly basis based on the scenarios that we had developed at the beginning of the year. This gave us the opportunity to revise our plans on the changing operating environment. In the end, we reported a surplus and a healthier balance sheet compared to the previous year. The pandemic impacted our revenue in 2 key areas. Our program revenue, which is normally derived from events and convenings, was down 35%, as we were unable to run conferences. In addition, there was an increase in demand for financial aid in our diploma program as a result of financial strain experienced by parents. On the positive side, our philanthropic revenue recorded an increase of 10%, which is impressive in a pandemic year. This growth enabled us to honor our scholarship commitments in a particularly difficult year. Our net assets grew by 12%, driven primarily by a significant growth in net surplus in FY21. The momentum to build our endowment fund continued in FY21. As at the end of the financial year, we had raised endowment assets in excess of $10 million. We thank our funding partners for standing with us even in such difficult and uncertain year. And as we look forward to continued support from these partners, we are also looking forward to establishing new partnerships with others on this call. Thank you all, and back to you, Mopati.
Thank you to our CFO for that clear financial picture. I am calm knowing that our resources are in good stewardship under your care. Thank you very much, Peter. We now are going to hear from one other young leader in our network, a former student of mine, Deborah Kalala. I'm very excited to speak to her. Deborah, if you can unmute yourself and join the call here, because you are somebody who has been passionate about education for some time. You're a member of, speaking of the sectors, you're a member of the AL4 education sector, and you're also a school leader at your young age. Can you tell us a little bit about Manas? Tell us kind of big picture, or introduce yourself first, and then tell us a little bit about Manas and the work that you are doing there, the problem you're trying to solve there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morake. My name is Deborah, and I am an LA alum, class of 2016 or 14, I guess. I don't have a good memory, but I'm also an Anzisha educator Anzisha Education Accelerator, Anzisha Accelerated Education Program. And I'm also the founder of Manasseh and the principal of Manasseh. So Manasseh is a private school that I created in 2016, but officially opened its doors in 2017. And I created the school during my gap year, right after like graduating from LA, and I came home having to think, what was I gonna do for my gap year? And I was like, I was in the middle of a situation that made me think and research, reflect. So in my reflection, I found out that in my community, there were so many young people who graduate from high school with interesting average from high school. They will be having an average of 70 or 80%, but then they were not able to read and write at all. And then I had to think about it, research, and I found out that there were so many young people like this. And I was like, if I'm to do something, I will do something in education. And why don't I just create a platform where young people are equipped with the necessary skills and competencies so as they change the situation, the status quo in our community, which is pretty much known to be the biggest and the poorest district. So we started with Manasseh, and so far Manasseh has been accommodating and educating over 300 students. And currently we're offering kindergarten and primary school levels. So this is what we do at Manasseh.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Deborah, I have one question for you, really. It's a question that all school leaders are wrestling with. What's the main lesson you've learned about running a school through a pandemic that you'll take forward, that will inform the Manasseh of the future? What's one sort of insight, one lesson that you'll carry forward?
Okay, so there's one thing that I've learned. It's really that my responsibility as a school my responsibility toward our students is to help them, is to equip them so as to be able to own their learning journey. Because it's education, it's about them. It's for them, and then it's by them. And us, the school, our parents, we are just facilitating that process. So we will not always be there facilitating that process. So they have to be able to own their learning journey. They have to know, what am I supposed to learn? What do I need to learn at this point of time? And when can I do it? And how do I do it? And us as a school, we just come to help them. But then for them to get to that point, us as a school, we need to equip them to be able to, take that journey for their own, instead of us taking the journey with them and then thinking that it's our journey. Because the pandemic brought us to be at home, and then at home we're not there with them. They were there having to study whenever they wanted.
Right. It sounds like you're describing something that your school in Kinshasa shares with this African Leadership Academy, is the belief in autodidactism, right? Students taking ownership of their learning, being empowered to take ownership of their learning journey. Deborah, nous sommes fiers de votre travail, de votre leadership, en fait. Thank you so much. We are proud of you. Thank you for keep doing the work you're doing to empower young people in your native Congo. Thank you so much. We now have a few minutes to take some questions. that have been filtered through to me. So I will read the question out loud and then invite the relevant person to respond. And all the while, please do pay attention to the links that Mr. Chitongo is putting into the chat. So our 2021 annual report, hot off the presses, is there for you to read. There are also links to the resources and the thinking that's been happening in Anzisha, and including a very engaging documentary, as well as stories, more and more stories from the Academy. So please do engage with those at your leisure. But I do have a question for Hatem. And this question is, if you can be as concise as possible, how has ALA responded to the challenges brought by the pandemic in an agile way? So I think this person wants to know a little bit about the agility of the response.
Yeah, I mean, I think my first thought is we're past the agility period. That feels like what we had to do in the first couple of weeks. I think that meant a rapid transition to remote instruction. In just a couple of weeks, we had a fully remote curriculum and timetable with everyone learning synchronously online. Obviously, there's all the health and safety protocols and everything that we had to learn last year about just staying safe. But it took a while before we even knew what sorts of masks you're supposed to be wearing, and before the government published all the guidelines for colleges, for schools and learning institutions. But I think the long run, I mean, now it's been almost 2 full years that we're living through this pandemic. I think the long run is trying to think about how do we move away from responding to the pandemic and just get back to the hard work of building a great school that was difficult even before the pandemic arrived, and work around the constraints that we now have. So we're still not able to do everything we would like in the classroom, but we can do most things. There's some things that we've learned about remote instruction and remote connection that work really well and that we're going to keep using anyway, particularly in keeping the campus connected. So I think my main response is I kind of want to untense the agile reactive muscles and go back to the sort of deep, slow, long work that schools need to be committed to for learning to really be improved.
Well phrased, lovely phrasing there. Untense and go back to the slower, deeper, contemplative work that will help us become a learning, innovating, and leading school, to borrow from our strategic plan. A question from our audience, Deborah and Beauclair. This one is for both of you. So if I can ask both of you, just 30 seconds, if you go 60. Let's go nuts. The audience member asks, I would love to hear more from Beauclair and Deborah on how we as the ALA network around the world can best support and partner with alumni like yourselves to make your dreams for Africa a reality. How can we help empower you as local leaders on the continent? So perhaps we can get Beauclair briefly, and then Deborah. How can the network empower you in your local leadership journey?
Okay, I'm going to go first. I think in terms of empowerment, I think it's a two-way traffic. So I, as an individual, we as alumni, we have to be responsible in terms of engaging with the network actively to actually take advantage of the resources that are there. Now, on the second level, in terms of how we can be supported, I think just more exposure into what are possible local partners. For example, my work in Nigeria, I had to actually tap into my network, into the organizations that in Nigeria that I can partner with, because I'm not in Nigeria, I'm from Cameroon. So that actually helped me to actually do the work I was doing with my team. So that is just me. And also others in the professional space, those who are in the corporate world, to actually keep getting exposure into opportunities for those who are transitioning back to the continent, for work opportunities.
Thank you. Very succinct. Deborah, what about you? How are you thinking about how this broad network that is invested, that cares, that's been supporting us, some of the people here have been supporting us, for the better part of a decade or more. How can the network support your journey, Deborah?
Already I have to say that I'm very thankful because the network has been very supportive. Because right now I'll be having two early alumni in my school, helping us with the entrepreneurial leadership program. Like already something like that, it's really like, it's just heaven for me. And I guess I have a lot of like programs that we have in the school in case you guys want to tap in and come, for instance, come and help the kid with like English or like problem solving. We have like space actually, because I cannot do everything on my own. And it seems like I'm the only bilingual in the school because the system is more it's more French. So if you guys want to come and help in, especially if you are bilingual, that will be most welcome.
All right, very practical ask there. If you happen to be bilingual and fancy a trip to Kinshasa, and sort of see kind of wonderful school built by our treasured alumnus here, and also, you know, an insight into kind of the kind of work that ALA is doing to support school leaders and school communities across the continent, and visit Manasseh. So Josh, the next question is for you. There's somebody who's curious about credentialing for your very young entrepreneurs who go through the fellowship program. So what credential do they leave with? What sort of what's the outcome there?
Thank you. That's a really big question. So the credential we've decided upon at this point is a matching check. So in the world of entrepreneurship, you know, saying that you know something doesn't really help as much as saying, here is a very demonstrable testimony to say, if you're going to support this young entrepreneur, we will do the same. So that's the intent of the Young Entrepreneurs Fund. It's essentially borrowing the credibility of the institution, and they can shop around this fact that not only have they learned from us the things that we think our young entrepreneur should know, but we're so confident that we will match an investment into that young person. The credentialing of entrepreneurship is a really big thing. And we do desire for our young entrepreneurs to leave with a set of credentials that I think would certainly de-risk them if their pathway leads them away from entrepreneurship and into traditional employment. I think that's one of the things we have to figure out. At the same time, we don't want to say that the alternative credential is traditional university necessarily, because that actually defeats the point of what we're trying to achieve. So whoever asked that question, if that's something that's of interest to you, we would actually love to talk about it further, because it's one of the things we really have to tackle over the coming sort of 3 to 4 years.
Thank you, Josh. And again, I invite people to think about this as the opening of a dialogue, right? We've got our resources, connect with us, think with us. We are, this work and this mission is only possible because of the thought partnership in this network, in this community. So I think we have time for one last question that can go to either Hatem or Maya. Somebody asked, what scholarship opportunities or support exists within the organization for students looking to study in the US? That's part one. We are hoping to engage with and encourage students from Africa to attend Berklee College of Music to explore a career and degree in the music industry. This person wants to know how might we connect and talk through opportunities to make that happen. So maybe Maya, if you feel like you want to start there, or Hatem, I'm not sure. Actually, Maya, we might have lost you for a second. Oh no, you're here. If you want to take that first part.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I threw a written answer in there. I mean, very absolutely always excited to talk, and I'd love to connect directly. We have some experience. We have a lot of experience partnering with universities, some experience partnering with universities that don't currently have a great deal of funding for international students and are eager to find the right source of funding. And while ALA doesn't fund scholarships for tertiary directly, we definitely know how to build them. And so I'd be very keen to work with the team at a fantastic institution like Berklee, which has had some ALA alumni. And you know, we were listening to the New Raza song at the beginning of this meeting. So certainly excited to hear about that and see what we can do together.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I suppose there is, Maya, I'm not sure if you were going to chime in on in terms of the AL for Creative Arts ecosystem. I wasn't sure if you were going to.
Certainly. Yeah, certainly. So when our alums are involved in wanting to find opportunities for themselves in the art space, if they're in university or they want to have some kind of residency, it could be overseas, but especially on the continent, we have AL for the Arts that wants to manage that, identify opportunities for alumni, enable access to these opportunities, and also coach you and mentor you in one, if you want to become a fully fledged artist. And so really the answer would be get connected to AL for the Arts, and we could share some links for connecting either via our website or newsletters or email. And that's really, step one. And then somebody would contact the alum.
Merci à vous. Merci à vous. The networks and the sectors will continue to grow, both with partners like yourselves, the young leaders who continue to kind of graduate into the networks. And that's one of the ways that you can support our work here is really plug into and support our sectors, join our sector communities. You can go to networks.africanleadershipacademy.org. We encourage you, invite you to continue to share our mission and share our work. We encourage you, we invite you to invest in our scholarship funds. Those are sort of three sort of ways in which you can continue to be a champion for this community, for its people, for the young leaders that you've heard from in this call. And the slide is there for your reading pleasure, right? Nominate a young leader to join our network, hire a young leader and support and catalyze their journey, and support the scholarship fund in addition to joining our sectors, as I just said. So thank you one and all. Thank you for making the time this morning or this evening, wherever you are, to hear from us, to think with us. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for your continued partnership, your friendship, your support. Without your friendship and support, this work would not be possible. So we are grateful on behalf of all the panelists and the young leaders in our network. Thank you for your time. We wish you well. Bonsoir.